Welcome back to the 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about classified reality. The largest undercover force the world has ever known is the one created by the Pentagon over the past decade. Some 60,000 people now belong to this secret army, many working under mass identity and in low profile, all part of a program called signature reduction. The force is more than 10 times the size of the clandestine elements of the CIA, and it carries out domestic and foreign assignments both in military uniforms and under civilian cover, in real life, online, and sometimes hiding in private businesses and consultancies, some of them household name companies. The unprecedented shift has placed an even greater number of soldiers, civilians, and contractors working under false identities, partly as a natural result in the growth of secret special forces, but also an intentional response to the challenges of traveling and operating in an increasingly transparent world. The explosion of the Pentagon's cyber warfare has led to thousands of spies who carry out their day-to-day work in various made-up personas, the very type of nefarious operations the United States decries when the Russian and Chinese spies do the same. The signature reduction effort engages some 130 private companies to administer the new clandestine world. Dozens of little-known and secret government organizations support the program, giving out classified contracts and overseeing publicly unacknowledged operations. Altogether, the companies pull in over $900 million annually to service the clandestine force, doing everything from creating false documentation and paying the bills and taxes of individuals operating under assumed names to manufacturing disguises and devices to thwart detection and identification, to build invisible devices to photograph and listen in on activity in the most remote corners of the Middle East and Africa. One example shows military operators hollowing out the rear of an SUV in Syria to install power and cabling to turn the seemingly normal vehicle into a close-in intercept platform and able to eavesdrop on cell phone and walkie-talkie signals nearby. Special operations forces constitute over half the entire signature reduction force. The shadow warriors who pursue terrorists in war zones from Pakistan to West Africa, but also increasingly work in unacknowledged hotspots, including behind enemy lines in places like North Korea and Iran. Military intelligence specialists, collectors, counterintelligence agents, even linguists make up the second largest element. Thousands deployed at any one time with some degree of cover to protect their true identities. So there are secret wars that are being fought on American soil and overseas, and people have no idea these things are going on. Part of the reason is because there's also a section of the intelligence agencies that focuses on social media. They're looking for people who are committing high crimes and treason, terrorist cells and stuff like that, which are real, of course. But then there's the entire collection of weapons of mass distraction that are being used to keep your attention off the real things that will have an effect on you down the line.
It's not just keeping your attention off the real things, it's making you volunteer your information. You know, we talk about it all the time. I remember the first time that I had an iPad and I'm at work, and the name of the building is called the Harriman Building. So I look at my iPad, I'm looking at Facebook, just, whatever. And I look down and it says, my name, last name, Morrow, such and such, is safe at the Harriman Dispatch Center. And so that right there, that's when I realized Facebook is always broadcasting your location. If of course, if you let it. But even when you don't let it, I'm still sure it's gathering your information. So back in the day, you wanted privacy. Now we give up our privacy just for cool points. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, we're surrendering to them. They don't have to spy on us anymore. We give them our information all the time.
So then there have been the laws that have been passed within the past 8 to 10 years that allow American citizens to be recognized as domestic terrorists and to be stripped of their rights.
Patriot Act, yeah.
They can render you a terrorist, and under this rendition, you'll disappear. You'll lose all your rights and you'll be kidnapped and sent to a black site.
Without a hearing, without a trial.
So These black sites are clandestine jails where prisoners are generally not charged with the crime and have no legal recourse and with no bail or court order. They are widespread overseas. They're in China, and there's also a Chinese black site that has been found to exist in Dubai by a former detainee. The CIA's Rendition, Detention, and Interrogation (RDI) program, initiated after September 11th, detained at least 119 Muslim terrorist suspects whom they had captured or abducted in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and other foreign countries. The CIA held or transferred the detainees to undisclosed prisons known as black sites that it operated in countries including Afghanistan, Lithuania, Romania, Poland, and Thailand in an apparent attempt to keep them outside the reach of the U.S. and international law.
Hey, you remember this video they had, Roscoe? There were some trainees. I don't want to say FBI or police because I don't want to lie because I really don't recall. But they basically had put up the pictures of our forefathers, Benjamin Franklin, Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, those guys. And they said, nowadays, these guys, the guys who fought the Revolutionary War, will be considered terrorists. And they'd all had to say, who would be considered terrorists? And they pointed out this person, that person. Like literally what they're saying, any kind of rebellion, because our nation was founded on that, would be considered a terrorist nowadays. Anybody who has any kind of thoughts against the government, which, again, America's found on that. You have a right to rebellion. It literally doesn't say it, but it gives you the right to assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of press, that kind of stuff. And the reason they have that is because that's how you keep track of the government. And so these guys are literally being trained on that shit.
But it's really fascists protecting themselves from the public, because what's going on is the military-industrial complex is a bunch of pirates that is using the American flag in the military and the intelligence agencies to do whatever they want. So the United States flag is a pirate's flag now, and it's being used as cover for all these dark deeds that people are doing. Now, do not misunderstand what I'm saying. People who want to do Americans harm should be dealt with 100%.
Yes.
But I'm talking about when that shit blows back up range.
If you work for the government and you're tracking more Americans than you are foreigners, that's a problem. Now, don't get me wrong. There are foreign people, agents, commodities in America. Yeah, that they sneak in. We let everybody in. I dig it. But if you're sitting here and there's a bunch of Americans who ain't got no history of anything, but all of a sudden, they got me watching Bob. I've been watching Bob Smith for 19 months now. Yeah, that's because all of a sudden they don't want anybody who used to have a positive, I don't know what to even call it, but back in the day, everybody was rebellious in America. Like, look, like, I don't fall for that shit, I don't, but now everybody has to go get along, excuse me. And if you speak up, then you're a problem.
They use corporations to deliver these messages. Then the message is then spread through people. And then people then police themselves, because they don't have to police the American family anymore because it's being policed from within. You got people getting divorced over the Barbie movie. You got people that are having all these arguments, like flare-ups about political discussions, and it's all weapons of mass distraction to keep your mind off of who is actually running things, because it's a gaslight. And they're gaslighting you into thinking that they are in control. But they have to be reminded by the letter of the law, they work for us. Their budgets
come from us.
They come from us.
The first time we really see this is when you see Henry Ford, Carnegie, and all them cats spend $30 million back in the day to take over the education system. So our education system was co-opted. I saw a brother had broke that shit down the other day. He said education means to draw out of. The word, he talks about the etymology of the word. And he said that was ended in 1930-something when they spent $36 million taking over the education system. They print all the textbooks. They print all the information that goes into them. And so it's no longer education. It's more of indoctrination. And so, like right now, I remember being a kid, and this is mine. I'm sure you're going to make fun of me. But we were taught breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It's the least important meal of the day. You don't even need breakfast. But we were taught that, and that you had to eat cereal. You had to have a balanced breakfast. You had to have toast, eggs, and a little bit of bacon and some sweet cereal. maybe orange juice, and that's what we were taught because we saw the commercials with O.J. Simpson, and that's indoctrination. And then now, if you speak out about it, you have people that will argue with you and say that you're crazy, or and that's what it means to indoctrinate somebody. You literally give them the answers, and they go off to basically you're teaching the test. It's not about free thinking and understanding and learning how to study for yourself. It's about making sure that you pass this test and you give the answers that they want. And that's it. That's dangerous. And that's what we've been doing for the past, 40, 50 years, or if not longer. So, yeah, that indoctrination is a real deal.
It's something that affects everybody. And you find these people who are unelected, like Klaus Schwab, that feel they can speak for the world.
Hey, who's the BlackRock one? Fink? Bob Fink or whatever?
It's Fink,
I can't think of the person.
Robert Fink. Recently, the World Economic Forum chairman, Klaus Schwab, called on the governments around the world to begin merging with unelected corporate elite to usher in the agenda that would lead to the end of the era of capitalism. Dude, you got to listen to this for what it really is.
Mm-hmm.
This is not subtle at all.
Surrender your freedom.
You got to have your big ears on. So old Klaus is throwing a shit fit because people are pushing back against ESG. So their plan is falling apart, and he's telling them, well, we got to do it faster. They're not listening, so we got to do it faster because, hey, this plan isn't working, so we got to put the boot on their neck now.
I know what's best for you.
Right. Exactly. Do as I say, not as I do.
The two biggest cats is, you said the other one who runs Vanguard, the investment, your 401k Vanguard, that motherfucker got $17 trillion. Their budgets are bigger than most nations. The other one is Fink, the one that runs BlackRock. We always hear about BlackRock. And when you first hear BlackRock, you think it's one of them things over there in Iraq where they shooting up people. You think it up.
No. You think it's in the Middle East, that the square, the cube of Saturn.
Yeah, you literally are thinking it's one of them damn, this one of these Navy SEALs and shooting up shit. No. BlackRock is the largest investment firm in the world, and they have another one, 17 trillion. Like, they make fun of billionaires. And literally, whenever a billionaire speaks up and realizes, hey, they're up to no good, they're like, oh, sorry, son, I just bought your business. Shut the fuck up. So this is the stuff that when my brother said that these corporations are in plain sight, changing how people feel and think, changing what they think is good and bad, not letting them talk about religion, not letting them, this is it. It's in your face. All they care about is money.
But see, Klaus represents corporate power. So he's advocating for the merger of the state and corporate power. That is fascism.
Without voting. I ain't vote for this motherfucker. I ain't vote for this nigga. Who the fuck is this? But that's some real shit.
So he says, with the fusion of the corporation and the state, we would see a shift from the era of capitalism to the era of talentism. And he says, under this system, corporate elites will craft policies with sovereign countries to ensure that innovation becomes the very key competitive factor. He already declared that his plans for merging corporations and states will mean that government will still provide direction, but business provides the innovative power. You're just sugarcoating things.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. A lot of that shit's already happening. But he's coming out on the open and saying we should force it down their throats. And, like America, you already have these corporations that are in charge. Elected officials being bribed. Trump, I'm going to drain the swamp. Bullshit. But you see that shit already. So, but he's making it official. He's making this an actual agenda. Like, hey, we might as well merge and not give you guys a choice. And we know what's best. And, if you're talented enough, isn't that how communism works? The talented ones get a little bit more money, get three more rolls of toilet paper, get a bigger apartment. Motherfucker, what? Like you don't. They're pushing things that already exist, but they're just giving it new names. If you name shit something else, it's still shit. You can call it rose gold or whatever you want, but it's still shit. That's what they're doing. They're just giving it a better name, a snappier name. They're reboxing it, but it's the same motherfucking pack. The same thing inside the package. Excuse me.
So, 2 decades after the attacks of September 11, 2001, the arrival of the first terrorism suspects at Guantanamo Bay on January 11, 2002, many Americans may not recall details of the systematic abuses carried out by the United States Central Intelligence Agency and the U.S. military against hundreds of people detained as part of what George W. Bush called the War on Terror. With the participation of at least 54 governments, the CIA secretly and extrajudicially transferred at least 119 foreign people from one foreign country to another for incommunicado detention and harsh interrogation at various CIA black sites. At least 39 of the men were subject to waterboarding, walling, rectal feeding, a form of rape, and other forms of torture. As of January 6, 2022, the U.S. was still detaining 39 of the nearly 800 men and boys it brought to Guantanamo from 2002 to 2008. 27 of those who remain have never been charged. No U.S. government officials have been held accountable for creating, authorizing, or implementing the CIA's secret detention and torture programs. All but a heavily redacted summary of the landmark 2014 U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee report on the covert CIA program, the torture report, remains classified. The portions that have been released make clear that torture was useless in producing actionable intelligence as it was brutal.
Look, that whole waterboarding thing, I get it. I know in these other countries they're pulling out fingernails and doing this other shit, but that waterboarding thing was mental torture. They had people thinking they were going to be drowned, and they were freaking out. Remember they had the dogs attacking them while they were naked, but they wouldn't let them loose. People were pissing on bodies, had them stacked on top of each other, had males and females making fun of these. Just fucking, it was torture. It was some mental torture.
It was torture and humiliation.
Yes. Yeah. And like you said, they still got people in there. Now, that's, you ever wonder why we still have places like Guantanamo Bay or even a U.S. territory like Puerto Rico? They have government bases in Puerto Rico. But since Puerto Rico is not a state, we can't ask them to give us. It's crazy. There's one dude I remember, your favorite show, Art Bell, Coast to Coast. Was one guy was on there describing these bases. They're underwater bases that go up into caves and stuff in Puerto Rico. He said, I remember my dad showing me as a child, and he was explaining to me that because this is a territory, it has a different set of rules. They don't have to do certain. They don't have certain rights, I should say. Excuse me. And the same reason we have Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and all these different places. So our rights as American citizens, the judicial rights, your right to remain silent, right to whatever, attorney, that shit don't fly in them places, and that's why they have them like that, just for these purposes.
So let's talk about Chinese police stations in America.
Okay, I'm listening.
So there was an article published in Politico on April the 19th of this year, 2023. Beijing has been operating an overseas police station in New York, London, Rome, Tokyo, and Toronto. The Department of Justice indictment of 2 Chinese citizens in April for using the unlawful Chinese police station in Manhattan to go after dissidents highlights the growing tentacles of Beijing's overseas operations, which it uses to harass and silence critics around the world. The network also uses the extent to which Beijing has managed to conduct influence campaigns inside Western countries and violate others' sovereignty while mostly evading law enforcement. Security agencies across Europe and the Americas are investigating more than 100 facilities that an advocacy organization exposed in September as an overseas outpost of China's security apparatus. In the U.S., that includes at least 2 others besides the one targeted this week. These secret police stations reveal that CCP's blatant disregard and disrespect for the American rules and privacy. The Spain-based nonprofit advocacy organization Safeguard Defenders published data from China's Ministry of Public Security in September that revealed that Beijing had announced its first batch of 30 overseas police service stations in 25 cities in 21 countries. By December, Safeguard Defender's tally of such facilities had grown to more than 100 in countries including the US, Canada, Nigeria, Japan, Argentina, Spain. In 2015, during PRC, People's Republic of China, Communist President Xi Jinping, his visit to the United States, one of those Chinese police station founders that was arrested and charged participated in counter-protest in Washington, D.C. against members of Falun Gong, a religion that is forbidden under People's Republic of China's law. A deputy director of the NPS, which is a Chinese police force, awarded Liu a plaque for the work he performed on behalf of the People's Republic of China's communist government. Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a mind and body practice for spiritual advancement guided by the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Falun Gong comprises 4 standing poses and 1 sitting meditative pose. The sitting pose, called the Way of Strengthening Supernormal Power, is similar to Qigong meditation exercises that have been shown to lower blood pressure. So then you're wondering, why is this religion illegal? Why do they want to get rid of these people? Because Falun Gong represents ancient China. And with Mao's Color Revolution, they destroyed all of the old culture, anything that remains from the ancient empires. Communism wanted to get rid of that. And so they intimidated people with the threat of death from practicing meditation and herbalism, martial arts, all the old Chinese ways. And so
anything that made you powerful, basically.
These people were compassionate Buddhists, and they would tell the CCP that you can kill me, but we'll just keep growing, and somebody will come along and be reincarnated, and you killing me, you may be reincarnated as a Falun Gong person. That scares the shit out of the communists in China. And that is why they want to kill all the Falun Gong people, and they devalue their lives and harvest their organs. And they put these people into these slave camps. On June 14, 2021, 12 United Nations Special Procedures mandate holders said they were extremely alarmed by reports of alleged organ harvesting targeting minorities, including Falun Gong practitioners, Chinese Uyghurs, Tibetans, Muslims, and Christians that are detained in China, and they called upon the PRC government to allow independent monitoring by international human rights mechanisms. The bipartisan Stop Forced Organ Harvesting Act of 2021, introduced in both the House and Senate of the United States, would expand the U.S. government's powers to combat organ harvesting and prohibit the export of organ transplant surgery devices to entities responsible for human organ trafficking, and impose sanctions on individuals and government officials in countries who support human organ trafficking and forced organ harvesting, and introduce mandatory reporting on human organ trafficking in foreign countries and on U.S. institutions which train organ transplant surgeons. So, you hear about this stuff going on, and it just sounds like some boogeyman in the distance or like some kind of fantasy. This episode is called Classified Reality for a reason, because there is an entire world full of dark shit that is going on, and just because your dumbass is hooked on a black rectangle and you stare at this black rectangle all day, that smartphone has turned you stupid, and all you care about is porn and sports scores and who's sleeping with who and the latest housewife of this house in this city and blah blah blah. Stuff that doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Look, it's a hustle. They got you.
So then, on November 27th, 2015, President Obama signed the U.S. Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act of 2015, or H.R. 2262. The law permits asteroid mining companies to keep whatever resources they have collected. Now, on the surface, this sounds very benign. It'll pass you right by if you're not paying attention. But why would the president be passing this bill for mining companies? Because they're already mining in space. Because they have been mining in space, and there have been colonies in space since the Nazis left and created the breakaway civilizations. Now, you got to understand, life for people in these colonies must be deplorable. It must be horrible. It has probably a caste system that's based off of something that was created by Nazis. But then you have the people that are coming from Earth to go and work on these other worlds or in these colonies or like mining minerals. So then they have to be protected by something that doesn't let them stray into the laws of those lands. Now, by the time Elon and them get to Mars, they're going to figure out that people have been there already. But that, too, will be classified for a long time.
They have had articles about this for years where they're trying to mine asteroids.
No. See, that's the whole thing is public perception. They presented to you that they're trying to do this, and this is like some young upstart, and we're trying to get it going. They are doing this now.
I'm not disputing that.
Renix,
all I'm simply saying...
Duct Tape, where do you live? What do you see? What do you see all the time going into space? Dude, you see launches several times a week going straight up into the sky, past the clouds, past the blue, into the dark, cold expanse of space.
Look. All I was going to say is there's a lot of debate about space right now, but all I was simply saying is that these motherfuckers are supposed to be bringing these asteroids in. You know, that shouldn't be that hard, you would think. I'm just saying. That shouldn't be that difficult to hitch one of these motherfuckers, use a tractor array, whatever the fuck we got, drag one of these things down and mine it, get whatever. But then, chances are, like I said, that Skunk Works is supposed to have all that shit already. All kinds of technology. Light years are
Ben Rich, founder of Skunk Works, said, "We have the technology now to take ET home." I'm
like, I don't know. I'm just saying that there's a lot of bullshit going on. I wouldn't be surprised if they already got slavery going on up there. You got motherfuckers rushing to get someplace for no apparent reason. Are they going to make Earth that bad, or is it that good up there that we got to get up there and get the shit, get whatever they got going on? We already know that gold is not native to this Earth. Gold comes from space. There's so many different conversations to have about this, but that's also why it's so important that we figure out what's real and what's not. This classified reality, that's a deep statement, because right now you're allowed to watch TV, you're allowed to watch old movies and new movies and stuff like that. You're allowed to do that, but you're not allowed to bring up the education system. You're not allowed to ask, well, why is this happening? You're not allowed to ask, well, hey, how come I see chemtrails going straight up? Not coming down. You're not allowed to ask those questions. So I've learned this. Whoever you get arrested for talking about is probably the person we need to be talking about. And that's what we are right now. We got to figure out who's in charge, and do I want that person in charge? Do they care about me? Satanism, all these different military officers were Satanists, that kind of shit. It's a hustle, I'm down for Space Force, but like I said, what are they not telling us?
Dude, there is an article. It's called "The Application of International Human Rights Instruments in Outer Space Settlements. Today's Science Fiction, Tomorrow's Reality." I'm going to read the abstract. "The military and commercial exploitation of outer space that has received increasing international attention since the United States of America announced its intention to establish an outer space military force to protect its interests in outer space. Simultaneously, NASA and private enterprises such as Blue Origin and SpaceX declared plans to colonize the moon and Mars in the near future. While technology is advancing rapidly to make these objectives a reality, the international legal rules related to these developments are completely uncertain and in some instances non-existent. It is evident that these developments may have a direct impact on the internationally protected human rights of individuals, and taking into account that the extremely adverse conditions in outer space and the dangers involved in creating sustainable human living conditions in outer space. International discussion of and action on these legal issues are needed urgently. As a starting point, this contribution discusses the question of whether existing international human rights instruments enjoy extraterrestrial application in outer space, given the current status of outer space law. Outer space law, that just sounds crazy. In answering the question, a broad overview is presented of some human rights issues that may be relevant to living in outer space and the role that the doctrine of effective control may play in this regard as it is analyzed.
Slavery, human rights,
Dude,
food,
human trafficking.
Yes.
You can say human trafficking and include slavery and sex slaves, just all the same.
Yeah. Look, well, one of the things that bugs me,
and then, as a labor guy, you should have a keen interest in this shit because, dude, there's gonna be people working on these asteroids that are mining shit, and they're like, "Man, I've been out here for 12 fucking hours. Like, I'm done for the day. Nope, we need you to keep going."
We're in space. Ain't no day. The Earth ain't spinning. Ain't no hours. Keep going. Yeah. Look, the only point I was trying to make.
See, that's a good question. Wait, hold on. Don't gloss over that. Because
no.
you just said something right there. You're like, well, if I'm not on Earth, how are we measuring time? On a job site.
By spins of the Earth. So if you ain't on Earth, the only point I was making earlier is about this whole mining thing. Suppose they already have big chunks of asteroid down here, and you got motherfuckers working on that shit right now. And like you said, they're already doing that shit. This also goes back to what we said earlier about Guantanamo Bay and places like Puerto Rico that are territories.
And then, hold up, what if you fall out with the foreman? Dude, there's a movie about this thing, and it's called it has Sean Connery in it. It's called Outland. It's really fucking good. It has the black dude that was in James Bond, Live and Let Die. What was his name? Dark skinned guy with the really big eyes. He was on the cop show. Yaphet Kotto. So Yaphet Kotto is this miner that's working on this mining colony, and Sean Connery is the sheriff. Dude, you gotta watch that movie. It's really fucking good. And like people are getting killed and like murdered and shit. And they're interviewing like the labor organizers and like the shift managers and shit. It's really good, dude. Outland. That's the name of the movie. Outland. But when you're working in these places and you're not on Earth, how are you measuring time? How do you know that you're not being abused? How do you know, dude? And then, then there's this element to this whole thing where you hear about in the military where people are forced to get implants to track their movements. There are special forces operators that have to get these trackers put in their body so that, if they're lost in the field, they can go get them, quote unquote, or if they get captured, they'll know where that person is. So,
which I really need to be thinking about is a lot of these motherfuckers, when they're no longer in the military, they want to keep up with these motherfuckers. It's that have you seen those interviews with the black dude, body by he is a former whatever, but they were asking about John Wick, and he's like, that's real stuff. He said that shit can really happen. He said my mentor, the guy that trained me, is like that. He said there are people out there that have those skills. Now, difference between me and you, when we grew up, we knew Vietnam vets, we knew World War II vets, we knew Korean vets. A lot of the motherfuckers, didn't want to talk about it.
Let me stop right here. Everything that we learned in martial arts works, is real, but the thing is that we're not training with the intent to kill as kids. These guys train the same things. And they basically make a Jeet Kune Do of all the shit that works, and they train to kill.
We talk about judo. Judo is a sport now, but they had a meeting to take all the lethal moves out of judo. There's a few submission moves left in it, but most of the stuff that made judo lethal, like those real good chokes, had that calf crusher. That shit hurts like a motherfucker.
What I'm talking about are the martial arts that were created during a time of warfare. The stuff that was created when they took the samurai swords away.
Yeah, you talking about this shit was designed to kill people from the get. This was always life or death situations. So my point is that when a person no longer works for the military, They probably want to keep track of your ass because in the past they've lost track of people. Um, it, I know you guys. I don't want to give the wrong dates, but like in '83, remember that motherfucker stole a tank and went through that town. That he's former military. Nigga can't get a job, ain't getting no pussy. Drugs don't run out. He stole a tank. There was another incident that took place. That's why machine guns are so illegal by Ronald Reagan. The shit happened on his watch. He's like, oh nah, we ain't ever going to go. If you want a machine gun, you got to pay for the tax stamp. Got to pay $10,000 here, $60,000 there. That guy is pre. So what I'm saying is that there are people trained by our government that our government, once they don't have a use for, they really want these motherfuckers gone or at least monitored. So yeah, can you imagine getting a body implant? You quit the job, but they still keeping track of your ass, listening to shit. That's fucked up.
Right. But what I'm talking about is manipulation through nanotechnology and how they can turn off thought centers in your brain that would cause you to speak up, or they can affect your sleep patterns. So then if you get this implant, see, this isn't your father's implant. This isn't the old school implants of yore. No. This is the new shit where you get this injected into your body and it starts to do things to you to make you more amenable or
more docile,
so that you'll go along to get along.
And look, what if this shit is triggered by the fucking blue light from your damn cell phone?
And then check this out. Oh, Elon wants to put a brain chip in everybody's head. The same way people were forced into getting certain medical procedures to keep their jobs. Buddy, you better know there's going to be jobs that are implant only.
Here's a question that nobody wants to deal with. We talk about how to make yourself better already. We talk about, lion's mane mushrooms. We talk about different foods.
Breathing and meditation regimen.
That literally will have the same effect. Fasting for a certain period of time. 17 hours, all that stuff. So why do I need an elective surgery? And of course, we know how they're going to start doing it. A couple celebrities are going to get it. And next thing you know, Eminem has it. He's the fastest rapper. Next thing you know, some singer will get it. And oh my God, some lawyer will get it. This is the best lawyer ever. They do that shit. They give you examples, and you're going to desire that shit. And that's the next step. You got Elon, who pretends like he's a good billionaire. I saw this. I don't want to give the wrong dates, but back in the day, Elon talked about starting his own bank. He was going to call it X. And he talked about having all these different banking services. And the shit fell flat, right? Funny thing is, what did he just do recently? He changed the name of Twitter to what? X. That means he never gave up on that idea. He just realized that idea it wasn't the time for that idea. But now, all these people who already are on Twitter, now known as X, what if he makes that, hey, all you guys, I'm gonna start a bank. All you guys deposit in the bank. I can keep track of all your shit. Help you with this, that. Yes, he created. He will have created the largest bank in the world by doing some bullshit, and we not realizing that's why he bought it. He didn't buy it just to buy it. He bought it for a reason.
Dude,
we just don't know what
check this out. So on July 9th, 2014, BBC Future, a division of the BBC that focuses on technology, reported that the Second International Extraterrestrial Liberty Conference, organized by Charles Kokel, an astrobiologist at the University of Edinburgh, had discussed the drafting of a constitution for an outer space colony on Mars. He believes that the proposed constitution should contain a Bill of Rights that takes into account the very special circumstances under which such a colony would live and function. And it is argued that the proposed constitution should, for example, make a provision for the right to leave the colony and the right to have oxygen supplied to one at all times. The practical issues related to realization of the rights are immense. The report by BBC Future observes in this regard as follows. Delegates also agree that the right to leave should be included in the new constitution, but it raises questions over the practicalities of leaving a colony on a planet without breathable air. As going outside is not a viable option, who pays for the trip home? Even more concerning, if the colony is being run by a corporation, do they have the right to get rid of you? To send you back to Earth or throw you out the airlock? Another practical problem that was raised by the conference concerns the governing of the colony. What is to be done if the governing mechanisms of the colony fail and a brutal dictatorship emerges? Whether and how any proposed constitution would be able to deal effectively with such a situation is not clear. In fact, it is trite that human nature is not fully susceptible to regulation by legislation. In this regard, Cockle is in the abstract of one of his articles on how extraterrestrial liberty sounds like the following warning. The lethal environmental conditions in outer space and the surfaces of other planetary bodies will force a need for regulations to maintain safety to an extent hitherto not seen on the Earth, even in polar environments. Antarctica. The level of interdependence between individuals that will emerge will provide mechanisms for exerting substantial control. In extraterrestrial environments, traditional buffers to tyranny that exist on Earth are either absent or much weaker. I'm going to say this one more time. I want everybody to listen closely. In extraterrestrial environments, traditional buffers to tyranny that exist on the Earth are either absent or much weaker. Legislative and potential mechanisms used to protect freedom will be needed to such a degree that they themselves are likely to become a form of despotism.
That's because you're completely dependent on the authority figure.
Listen,
because
wait. Thus, the most profound irony of the settlement of space is that the endless and apparently free expanses of interplanetary and interstellar space will in fact allow for and nurture some of the most appalling tyrannies that human society can contrive. Thwarting this tyranny will be the greatest social challenge in the successful establishment of extraterrestrial settlements. Go ahead.
No, I agree.
Star Wars. This is Star Wars, dude. Hold up. This is Star Wars. This is how Star Wars begins. This is how the Sith gets started. This is how you get motherfuckers like Darth Vader and the fucking Empire. Right here. This is how you get the Cardassians. This is how you get the Klingons. This is how you get fucking Star Trek.
No, slow down. Do you remember Serenity? So you remember the show?
While I was reading this, that's all I was thinking about, actually.
So first, the show is called Firefly. Excuse me. The movie's called Serenity. And I saw the movie before I saw the show, so I ran back and watched the show. But the show is basically Star Trek. So you got a federation that says they're good for everybody, but some people just don't want to be with the federation. So these people that don't want to be with the federation, they're going to force you to join. What the fuck? So they got people that don't want to be part of the federation. So, again, this is the flip side of Star Trek. But the point we're trying to make is that if people are appalling racists, sexist, rapists, all this bullshit right now, and you have difficulty stopping people from doing that, what's going to happen when you give people, when you're completely beheld to either a corporation, a company, a city, or whatever you work for, you decide, I don't want to work for them no more, well, they're going to stop taking care of you. They're going to stop supplying you with air. Or worse, these conditions are going to be deplorable.
Or they can just like put you in a room and turn the gravity up 5 times.
How about this? Let's think about a real example of Hurricane Katrina. So people are forced to be inside the Superdome. They let them people out of prison. Them prisoners were with regular people. They were raping people in there. You couldn't keep up. So you mean to tell me you think that these motherfuckers are going to just be good people? That they're all no. So you got to deal with the fucked up people where you are. What your bosses are going to be fucked up and corrupt. They'll be taking advantage of people. If you want to get a job, there's no EEOC in space. You dig what I'm saying? Who's going to control the sexual harassment in space? Who's going to control the racism in space? Who's going to control the favoritism, the nepotism, the isms in space? Nobody, because you can barely control it here on Earth. And that's what. And then what they're saying is that this is they foresee this to be a problem of the worst type. So yeah, just
Okay.
wow, we talk about. Whew,
so check this out. So opening this show, we talked about signature reduction, which is about secret armies. We talked about the Chinese police stations in America. We talked about black sites. This is stuff that humans do on Earth. They'll do the same thing on other planets or on asteroids. So all of this causes me to think of a level of paranoia that was only known really during the civil rights era, when you had people who had their phones wiretapped, COINTELPRO, and you had all this paranoia, right? And you had motherfuckers like the Weather Underground, like, blowing up government offices and shit. This
only one of them went to jail, by the way. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Exactly. But this causes you to think about, all right, all of that can happen again. It actually never stopped happening. It just went dark, was silent. And so
the other thing is they don't report this shit anymore. There's a lot more terrorism
because
more people.
The news media is controlled by them. So it's bad for their business to put that stuff out there, so they won't allow it to get out there.
Look, I remember the case that we always talk about is that guy that went off in Dallas, made his own armored vehicle.
The black dude, the first black dude to be killed by a robot in public.
Well, hold it. We don't know if that was true or not, but yeah, everybody knows about the Donner case over there in L.A. But the one in Dallas, this dude went off on him, but it barely made the news. And supposedly they killed his son is what made him go off, and he went off. He went after different precincts.
He went John Wick Equalizer on motherfuckers.
Yeah, oh, for real. But the point we're trying to make is that if that story, they don't want to inspire certain behaviors. It's not about the story itself. You're like, oh, we care about our cops. Fuck that. We witnessed in the years after that all that corruption in Dallas. That white girl shooting that Benet dude, the Haitian dude, and then the family hugging him, and the judge asking to fix her hair. We witnessed. There's some corruption going on in Dallas that the rest of the world, the rest of the country and the world does not know about. But the point I'm making is there's certain stories they don't put out because they don't want to inspire you. Like, oh, because we think the cops are the final say so. Like, hey, you afraid of cops? A cop's this cop. A cop don't come on my property without my permission. And the last time a cop came on my property and yelled at me, my kids started laughing. I'm gonna beat your motherfucking ass. I said, you better back up 3 feet because that's where the property line is. And if you think you're going to talk to me like that on my property, see, because we're trained, we're brainwashed with these movies and these TV shows that the cops have say so. They don't. Cop works for you, and until you understand that shit, you will be afraid of a police stop. You will be this, you'll be that. And don't get me wrong, yeah, cops they can get a hold of you, they can arrest you, but that's why you have the Second Amendment. I'm like, I'm gonna take 2 of them with me, and then I need y'all to write the story about how I was like. If I ever get killed in a shootout and they put crack or drugs in my car, I need Roscoe. Hey, man, I've known this dude 48 years. He's never used that kind of drug, or he never done this, or he never. But I'm not afraid of dying. You got to get over that shit too. But this is what we're talking about. That these people control you by showing you certain movies and certain objectives. Like the one thing that you brought up that's kind of deep. You don't see the Rambo movies anymore. You don't see the one-man soldier movies anymore. You see the Expendables where they got a bunch of soldiers, but you don't see the one cat taking on a whole city like we used to. You don't see the Action Jacksons. You don't see you see James Bond, but he ain't the James Bond we grew up on. You know what I'm saying? That's because they don't want those stories to inspire you to action. They don't want to give you ideas. They don't want you to know about that guy that made a bunch of bombs and took out a bunch of police, had them scared, wet in their pants. They don't want you to ever come up against authority. That's why these stories are out there. But also, that's how they convince you to give up your rights. Like I said, we talked about this last time. One of our best episodes is the death of the civics class. That's why we have these 90-year-old fucking politicians still in office, because we don't realize that we all can run for office at any time. lifers. We don't realize that we can run for office. We don't realize they have whole websites dedicated to their stock purchases. So you can see, okay, this politician bought 146 shares or 800,000 shares of this. I should be doing that too. That's called insider trading anywhere else. They don't want you to know that you can affect this world. That we're walking gods and goddesses, and that we can fix things. Our health. They don't want you to know that if you fast for 5 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, all of a sudden you ain't got these diseases anymore. So it's designed to make us dependent on this society. And now that it's easier when you volunteer. When you volunteer for an implant, when you volunteer to give your location because you want to play a video game, when you volunteer because you want to keep up with your ex from third grade and see who she with. But now you're giving away all your information and all your sovereignty. That's the shit we're talking about right now. And it's really hard to make people understand that this classified reality is the shit that you need to know. That's the shit that we all should be aware of, and that we should be talking about at the water cooler at work. That stuff.
So,
sorry.
This last part of this space law that I find really interesting has an interesting example of an economic issue that would probably in future need attention of states, is that the tax avoidance by individuals in outer space. A similar problem occurs in international waters on planet Earth. Individuals are currently making plans to avoid tax by living in a floating tax haven, such as ships which constantly travel around the world. They sail in international waters and stay in national waters of individual countries for a very short time so as to avoid paying tax to any country. The resemblance between the two institutions is obvious. Currently, diverse opinions exist on the nature of the envisaged space colony. In this regard, it is proposed that a federal model would be best suited to ensure peace and liberty between the various colonies that will eventually be established in outer space. So, thus, effective control of a territory is not in and of itself sufficient for a would-be state to exist in the realities of the current international scene. Without recognition, an entity is not a state and thus not a member of the international community and a fully fledged subject of international law. It is unable to use international law institutions and claim its protection. Recognition is a necessary but not sufficient condition of statehood. Recognition is a prerequisite of statehood and is an essential criterion that may even trump weak or partial effectiveness in certain legal contexts, although not a lack of factual independence. Conversely, the effectiveness of government authority over a population and territory does not lead automatically to statehood within the meaning of international law, in the absence of international recognition. So, it's saying that what does this colony belong to? Is it recognized as its own state, or is it part of another state? And if it is an extension of that state, it has to follow those laws. But if the moment that it chooses not to, there's some wiggle room. For example, it takes minutes for communication to get between Earth and the moon. It takes even longer to communicate with something on Mars. So by the time they got a response for a ruling on something, the courtroom has been shot up and murdered, and everybody's dead in the courtroom, and they've taken over the entire colony.
Like Ghost of Mars.
Yep.
Like Q. You would have space marshals and shit like that.
Yep. But these things are, okay. People like to think about this stuff as not happening now. It's happening now. Because, I reiterate, there are massive launches that are happening every week from Middle America up into space. And they're taking all types of supplies up there. They're taking drilling supplies and restocking the stations and the colonies, and they're trading stuff. And you got pirates. There's going to be pirates. So I want to talk about the military aspect of this. So, Project Zodiac is run by JSOC, United States Military, Joint Special Operations Command, and Raytheon. So that's the government, and that's a corporation. That's fascism right there. So, Project Zodiac is the recovery and cataloging of downed alien spacecraft. Each member of the project must possess an SES GS-15 level clearance. SES stands for Senior Executive Services, and they report directly to POTUS. Use of deadly force is used against Zodiac members that attempt to go public. Delta Force is now part of JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Command. And JSOC is based at two bases, Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina and Fort Bragg in North Carolina. SEAL Team 6 is now known as Naval Special Warfare Development Group, which is also part of JSOC. They also contain the Green Berets, the Army Rangers, the Army Night Stalkers, and the Air Force Special Tactics Unit. JSOC is the main military group interacting with extraterrestrials, and Raytheon is there to provide technical support and aircraft or craft that they build for JSOC to use when they're interacting with extraterrestrials. So in opening up these colonies, they interacted with extraterrestrials, and they need some muscle to protect themselves from these people that come from other places, these creatures that come from other places. So Raytheon, that's where they come in, providing this technology, lasers and teleportation and all this crazy stuff to fight these aliens or to help these aliens, depending on what kind of treaty they signed with the Earth and these aliens. But to keep all this stuff secret, they're not telling anybody about it. And the punishment is death for Zodiac members. So that means these people are living an entirely separate reality from the one that we occupy. Their water cooler talk is not the same as yours. It's vastly different. The stuff that they encounter, the stuff that they see, their debriefings, their briefings, the things that they talk about before and after a mission, all these things are completely opposite of what our normal reality is. And they live in a classified reality where they can't talk to anybody about the shit that they're seeing.
But the biggest thing is they start preparing you for this life as little kids, and video games and keeping secrets and telling on your parents without telling on your friends. All of a sudden, when you get to that job, say they find you, or they recruit you out of college, you've already been indoctrinated. It's the same thing with the Masons. First degree Mason don't know what a second degree Mason knows. Second degree Mason doesn't know what third degree, and so they keep they give you a little bit of information to keep you tantalized. But yeah, I don't know what that 33 and 32nd degree Mason. You don't know what they know, and that's how they get you. Because like, oh my God, they don't have to brainwash you. Your brain was plenty washed when you got here.
Dude, this stuff is just mind blowing. Because we started this episode on the Earth. I didn't want to jump all the way into the space stuff at the beginning. I wanted to build it up so that you understand there's a special silent war that's happening on Earth with a special army that is not known to the public. And so then you extrapolate that all the way out into the heavens, all the way out past the Earth's atmosphere into the realm of space. And so you have these people that are living these extraordinary lives. But between them and the aliens, there's regular ass people turning wrenches, working regular ass jobs.
Listen, but not in a regular ass place.
So look, you got G.I. Joe, You got Cobra Law, and then you have the humans in between that got to build the lair for Cobra to like party in. They got to build the Cobra base.
Hey, it's like a robot chicken. That janitor on the Death Star. He's sitting there sweeping. All of a sudden, Palpatine comes flying by. Oh shit! I gotta clean that up. Look, we just need people to recognize that there's a big agenda and that most of this shit is a distraction. They got TV shows to keep you distracted. They got sex clubs to keep you distracted. They got porn to keep you distracted. They got sometimes religion to keep you distracted. They got all these things to keep you from focusing on what they got you wrestling at work, competing against other people for 15 little positions, but it's 300 of y'all. So you're competing for that, but you're not looking. You're not watching what's going on with the rest of the world. You're not watching. They're about to ban guns over a goddamn brace. They're about to make this legal. They're about to make fake meat real, and they won't be able to tell you if it's real or fake meat, but you got to eat it. We always talk about appeal. That shit is out there right now on fruits and vegetables. And if you call Trader Joe's, if you call Whole Foods and ask them, they'll just send you to another person, like 5 different people. They tell you that, yeah, it's a thing and that's plant-based and it's not bad for you. But they don't tell you if they use it or not. That's the kind of shit we're talking about. We always bring up, because me and Roscoe are nerds, but when Barack Obama suspended posse comitatus, that's when you can't assemble a army on American soil for go against Americans, or other armies can't come on here. And we saw that's the shit. That's the shit that they slide by your ass while you're trying to compete for a middle management position at work. That's that shit. Wake the fuck up.
Look, eat your vegetables, do your homework. That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.